You are not broke because you lack money. You are broke because you lack the courage to charge what you're worth. And that cowardice is bankrupting your future. Every time you work for less than your value, you're not being humble, you're being foolish. Every time you give away your expertise for free, you're not being kind, you're being complicit in your own poverty. Every time you accept less than you deserve, you're not being grateful. You're being a volunteer victim. The harsh truth is that no one will value you more than you value yourself. No one will pay you more than you believe you're worth. And no one will respect you more than you respect yourself. Your financial problems are not economic problems. They are self-esteem problems disguised as money problems. Maria Rodriguez walked through the grand hallway of the mansion every morning at 6 sharp, her cleaning cart squeaking against the marble floors. For 3 years, she dusted the same ornate frames, polished the same mirrors, and vacuumed the same Persian rugs. Behind her, on the wall she cleaned daily, hung what she thought was just another old painting, dark, dusty, unremarkable. The wealthy family who owned the mansion barely noticed it either. It was just part of the furniture, part of the background. On Tuesday morning, as Maria reached up to dust the frame, her cloth caught the corner and the painting shifted slightly behind it. She glimpsed something that made her heart stop. There, hidden beneath layers of grime and neglect, were the faint but unmistakable brushstrokes of a master. What everyone had dismissed as worthless wall decoration was actually a lost masterpiece worth $12 million. Maria stood there, trembling, realizing she had been walking past a treasure every single day for 3 years. She had dusted around it, cleaned beneath it, and never once suspected that behind the dirt and darkness lay something of extraordinary value. You are that painting right now. As you sit there, perhaps feeling defeated, perhaps questioning your worth, perhaps wondering if you will ever amount to anything significant, you are that masterpiece covered in dust. The problem is not that you lack value. The problem is that you have been trained to see yourself as ordinary when you are actually extraordinary. Listen to me carefully. Your current circumstances are not your permanent address. Your present condition is not your final destination. You may be broke, but you are not broken. You may be down, but you are not out. You may have failed before, but failure is not your identity. It is simply information. The greatest tragedy in life is not that people fail. The greatest tragedy is that people fail to recognize their own value and settle for a life far beneath what they were designed to live. You see? Most people spend their entire lives polishing everyone else's dreams while their own masterpiece gathers dust in the corner of their mind. Society has programmed you to believe that you are common, that you are average, that you should be grateful for whatever scraps fall from someone else's table. But I want to shatter that lie right now. You were not created to be common. You were not designed to be average. You were not born to live off the leftovers of other people's success. There is a difference between price and value, and you must understand this distinction if you are going to change your life. Price is what someone is willing to pay for something at a particular moment. Value is what something is actually worth. Maria's painting had a price of 0. Nobody wanted to buy it because nobody recognized what it was. But its value was $12 million. Your boss may only be willing to pay you minimum wage. That is your price. But your value is immeasurable. Your mind contains ideas that could revolutionize industries. Your hands possess skills that could build empires. Your heart carries compassion that could heal communities. Your voice holds words that could inspire generations. But here is the problem. You have been looking at yourself through the wrong lens. You have been measuring your worth by your current paycheck, your present circumstances, your past mistakes. You have been allowing other people's limited vision of you to become your vision of yourself. When Thomas Edison's teacher told him he was too dumb to learn anything, was that teacher seeing Edison's value? When Walt Disney was fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination and having no good ideas, was that editor seeing Disney's worth? When Oprah Winfrey was told she was unfit for television news, were those executives recognizing her potential? No. They were seeing the dust, not the masterpiece. The reason you have not succeeded yet is not because you lack ability. It is because you have not learned to see yourself correctly. You have been programmed to focus on your flaws instead of your features, your problems instead of your potential, your history instead of your possibilities. But today, something changes. Today, you begin to clean off the dust. Today, you begin to see what has always been there. A person of incredible value who has simply been looking in the wrong mirror. You see, when you do not value yourself, you unconsciously teach others not to value you either. When you do not respect your own time, others will waste it. When you do not honor your own abilities, others will exploit them. When you do not recognize your own worth, others will underestimate you. This is why the first step to changing your life is not learning new skills, not finding new opportunities, not meeting new people. The first step is learning to see yourself differently. Because until you change how you see yourself, nothing else will change. Maria could have continued cleaning around that painting for the rest of her life, never knowing she was in the presence of greatness every single day. But the moment she looked closer, the moment she saw beyond the surface, everything changed. Not just for her, but for everyone who would ever look at that wall again. Your life is waiting for that same moment of recognition. Your breakthrough is not coming from somewhere outside of you. It is coming from inside of you when you finally see what has always been there. You are not the sum of your failures. You are not the product of your circumstances. You are not the victim of your past. You are a masterpiece waiting to be revealed. You are a treasure waiting to be discovered. You are a solution waiting for the right problem. You are a leader waiting for the right moment. The question is not whether you have value, you do. The question is whether you will recognize it, clean it off, and present it to the world. Because the world is waiting for what you have to offer. The world needs your particular brand of genius. The world is incomplete without your contribution. Stop looking at yourself through other people's eyes. Stop measuring your worth by external standards. Stop waiting for permission to be great. Start seeing yourself as the masterpiece you have always been. Start treating yourself as the valuable person you are. Start believing in yourself with the same intensity that you doubt yourself. Your value is not determined by your current situation. Your worth is not measured by your present resources. Your significance is not calculated by your past performance. You are valuable because you exist. You matter because you are here. You have worth because you are you. Who you are, you are. Who you are drops in time, drops enough time. Worth living. Your worth living. Your value. This is how you connect with your future. This is how you connect with your future. Now that you understand your value exists, you must understand why you have been programmed to think otherwise. Let me tell you about James Mitchell, a man who worked the night shift at an automotive factory for 15 years, every evening at 11 p.m. He would punch his time card, put on his safety goggles, and take his position on the assembly line. For 8 hours, he would install the same component, repeat the same motion, collect the same paycheck. But James had a problem. During his lunch breaks, while other workers played cards or complained about management, James would sketch. He would draw designs for car parts that could be manufactured faster, cheaper, better. His notebooks were filled with innovations that could save the company millions of dollars and revolutionize the entire automotive industry. His supervisor noticed the sketches one night and laughed. "James, You're a factory worker, not an engineer. Stick to what you know. His co-workers agreed. Stop dreaming, James. We're blue-collar people. Leave the thinking to the college boys upstairs. For months, James listened to these voices. He convinced himself they were right. After all, he had no formal engineering degree. He had no business experience. He was just a factory worker. So he kept installing parts and kept his ideas locked away in his notebooks. Then, one morning, James saw something that changed everything. He read a newspaper article about a young entrepreneur who had sold a simple invention to a major corporation for $50 million. The invention, a small automotive component that improved fuel efficiency by 3%, James stared at the article in disbelief. In his notebook, on page 47, was a design for the exact same component, except his version improved efficiency by 5%. That moment, James realized he had been living under factory settings when he was designed for factory ownership, you see. There is a difference between your current programming and your original design. Your current programming tells you to think small, play it safe, stay in your lane, be grateful for what you have. But your original design created you to think big, take calculated risks, create new lanes, and build what you want. James quit his job the next week. Not recklessly. He had saved money and created a plan. He spent the next 6 months developing his automotive innovation. He faced rejection after rejection from investors who saw a factory worker, not an inventor. But James no longer saw himself through their eyes. He saw himself through the lens of his value. 18 months later, James sold his first patent for $8 million today. He owns a company that employs over 300 people, many of them former factory workers, who, like him, discovered they were operating under the wrong settings. The tragedy is not that James worked in a factory for 15 years. The tragedy is that he almost spent his entire life there, never realizing he had the capacity to own the factory. This is what I call factory settings, the default programming that tells you to accept your current position as your permanent position. Factory settings convince you that your job is your identity, that your paycheck determines your potential, that your education limits your possibilities. But you were not created to live on factory settings. You were designed with custom programming, unique abilities, distinctive perspectives, original ideas that no one else possesses. The problem is that society keeps trying to restore you to factory settings every time you start thinking differently. When you were a child, you thought like an owner. You built kingdoms in sandboxes, commanded armies of toy soldiers, created businesses selling lemonade. Then someone told you to be realistic. Someone convinced you to lower your expectations. Someone programmed you to think like an employee instead of an entrepreneur. But here is what they never told you. The greatest companies in the world were built by people who refused to accept factory settings. Microsoft was built by a college dropout. McDonald's was built by a traveling salesman. Ford Motor Company was built by a farmer's son with no formal business training. These individuals succeeded not because they had more advantages than you, but because they refused to live under someone else's programming. They broke free from factory settings and operated according to their original design. Right now, you may be working for someone else, but that does not mean you have to think like someone else. You may be earning someone else's wage, but you do not have to limit yourself to someone else's vision. You may be in someone else's building, but you do not have to stay trapped in someone else's thinking. Your current position is not your final destination. Your present job is not your permanent identity. You are not defined by what you do for money. You are defined by what you were created to become. The shift from factory settings to original design begins in your mind. It starts when you stop seeing yourself as just an employee and start seeing yourself as a potential employer. It happens when you stop thinking about job security and start thinking about wealth creation. It occurs when you stop asking, how can I get a better job? And start asking, how can I solve a bigger problem? James Mitchell did not need permission to think differently. He did not need a degree to innovate. He did not need anyone's approval to value his ideas. He simply needed to stop operating under factory settings and start functioning according to his original design. The same is true for you. You do not need more credentials to think bigger thoughts. You do not need more connections to create valuable solutions. You do not need more capital to start planning your escape from mediocrity. You simply need to change your programming and start operating as the custom disaster person you have always been. But changing your programming is only the beginning. The next step is learning to recognize the treasure that already exists within your experiences. Let me tell you about Lisa Washington, a single mother from Detroit who was living on food stamps and government assistance, struggling to feed her 3 children on $40 a week. Every Sunday, Lisa would prepare the same meal her grandmother had taught her, a special recipe for cornbread that had been passed down through 4 generations. Her children loved it. Her neighbors would smell it cooking and ask for the recipe. Friends would beg her to make extra loaves for their families. But to Lisa, it was just cornbread. Just a way to stretch $1 and fill hungry stomachs. One afternoon, while waiting in line at the welfare office, Lisa overheard 2 women talking about a local farmer's market where people were selling homemade goods for premium prices. One woman mentioned seeing someone sell 12 muffins for $36. Lisa nearly choked. $36? That was almost her entire weekly food budget. That night, Lisa looked at her grandmother's recipe with different eyes. She began to calculate. The ingredients for 1 batch cost her $3. The recipe made 12 pieces. If she could sell them for even half of what those muffins cost, she could make $15 per batch. If she made 5 batches, that would be $75. More than she received in food stamps for an entire month. But doubt crept in. Who would buy cornbread from a welfare recipient? Who would pay premium prices for something she made in her tiny apartment kitchen? Who was she to think she could build a business? Then her 8-year-old daughter said something that changed everything. Mama, why don't you sell your cornbread? It's the best cornbread in the world. Out of the mouths of babes came the recognition Lisa needed the next Saturday. Lisa took 4 dozen pieces of cornbread to the farmer's market. She had no fancy display, no professional packaging, just her grandmother's recipe, baked with love and wrapped in aluminum foil. She sold every single piece within 2 hours. People were asking when she would be back, placing orders for the following week within 6 months. Lisa had moved from food stamps to food entrepreneur within 2 years. She had her own commercial kitchen and was supplying 3 restaurants with her signature cornbread. Today, Lisa's grandmother's recipe generates over $200,000 annually, and she employs 8 people in her community. What changed? Not Lisa's circumstances initially, not her education level, not her financial resources. What changed was her recognition of what she already possessed. This is what I call the recognition principle, the moment you realize that your struggle contains your strength, your experience contains your expertise, and your problems contain your products. Lisa had been carrying a fortune in her family recipe for years, but she could not see it because she was looking at it as survival food instead of specialty food. She was seeing necessity instead of opportunity. She was focused on what she lacked rather than what she possessed. How many of you are sitting on solutions that you consider ordinary because they come naturally to you? How many of you have developed skills through your struggles that could become services for others? How many of you possess knowledge gained through your pain that could become products for profit? You see, the very thing you went through that nearly broke you might be the very thing that will make you. The challenge that almost destroyed you might contain the wisdom that will enrich you. The problem you solved for yourself might be the solution someone else will pay you to provide. Every expert was once a beginner. Every professional was once an amateur. Every successful person was once someone who simply recognized that their experience had value beyond their personal use. Lisa's cornbread was not special because of secret ingredients. It was special because it carried love, tradition, and care. Things that cannot be mass-produced or artificially created. Your value is not in trying to be someone else. Your value is in being authentically you. The recognition principle requires you to stop dismissing your abilities as common and start seeing them as commodities. Stop treating your insights as personal observations and start treating them as professional opportunities. Stop viewing your experiences as private pain and start seeing them as public solutions. You already have what you need. You already possess what others are seeking. You already know what someone else needs to learn. The question is not whether you have value to offer. The question is whether you will recognize it, package it, and present it to those who need it most. Recognition is the bridge between potential and profit, between ability and income, between what you have and what you can become. Recognition without action remains merely revelation. Once you see your value, you must learn to invest in it strategically. Let me share with you the story of Robert Chen, a man who spent 12 years giving away million-dollar advice for free and wondering why he remained broke. Robert worked as a maintenance supervisor at a shopping mall, but he possessed an unusual gift. He could walk into any failing business and within 30 minutes identify exactly what was wrong and how to fix it. Store owners would casually ask his opinion during his rounds, and Robert would freely share insights that often transformed their struggling ventures into profitable enterprises. The coffee shop that was hemorrhaging customers, Robert suggested they move their seating area to catch the morning sun and change their music to something more energizing. Sales increased 40% within a month. The clothing boutique that couldn't move inventory, Robert recommended reorganizing their displays by lifestyle rather than size and creating outfit combinations. They sold more in the following quarter than they had in the previous year, week after week, month after month. Robert would dispense this wisdom freely, genuinely wanting to help. He felt good about contributing to these businesses' success. But there was one problem. While the business owners were getting richer from his advice, Robert was getting poorer from his generosity. One evening, Robert overheard a conversation that shattered his perspective completely. Two business consultants were discussing their fees at a restaurant table near his. One mentioned charging $15,000 for a 3-day business assessment. The other talked about earning $50,000 for a complete business restructuring plan. Robert sat there stunned. These consultants were charging enormous fees for providing the exact same type of analysis he had been giving away for free. The same insights that had been flowing from his mind like water were being packaged and sold by others like precious gems. That night, Robert made a decision that changed everything. He would stop being a charitable advisor and start becoming a compensated consultant. But first, he had to change how he viewed his own knowledge. Robert began treating his expertise like inventory in a warehouse. Every piece of advice was an asset. Every insight was intellectual property. Every solution was a product with value. He stopped giving away his analysis and started selling his assessments. The first business owner who approached him for free advice received a different response. "I appreciate your confidence in my abilities," Robert said. "My consultation fee is $500 for the initial assessment, and my implementation plan costs $1,500. When would you like to schedule your appointment?" The owner was shocked. This was the maintenance guy who used to help for free, but desperation drove him to pay. Within 2 weeks, Robert had helped triple the man's monthly revenue. The business owner gladly paid and referred 3 other struggling entrepreneurs within 18 months. Robert had left his maintenance job and was earning 6 figures as a business consultant. The same knowledge that once made him feel useful now made him wealthy. The same insights that once brought him satisfaction now brought him financial freedom. The difference was not in what Robert knew. His expertise remained the same. The difference was in how he valued what he knew and how he invested in developing it further. This is the investment mindset. Treating yourself as your most valuable asset and your knowledge as your most precious commodity. It means stopping the free distribution of your wisdom and starting the strategic deployment of your value. Most people operate like Robert did initially. They give away their best ideas in casual conversations, volunteer their skills for exposure, and share their insights for appreciation. Then they wonder why their bank accounts don't reflect their capabilities. But successful people understand that your mind is not a charity, it is a business. Your expertise is not a gift to be freely distributed, it is an investment to be carefully cultivated. Your knowledge is not common information, it is intellectual capital. When you develop the investment mindset, you begin treating your time as precious, your advice as valuable, and your skills as assets. You stop working for applause and start working for advancement. You cease functioning for recognition and start operating for revenue. The investment mindset requires you to put a price on your value and then invest in increasing that price. It means spending money on your education, time on your development, and energy on your advancement. It means treating yourself like a stock that you are determined to see appreciate. Robert's transformation happened not when he learned new skills, but when he learned to value the skills he already possessed. Your breakthrough will come not when you acquire more abilities, but when you begin to invest in the abilities you currently have. All the recognition and investment in the world means nothing without activation. You must learn to present your value in a way that the world can see it, appreciate it, and compensate you for it. Let me tell you about Grace Martinez, whose story will show you how the same talent can command $20 or $20,000, depending on how you position it. Grace was a struggling artist living in a cramped studio apartment, selling her paintings at weekend flea markets for $20 to $50 each. She would spend weeks creating beautiful landscapes and portraits, only to watch people walk past her booth dismissively. Customers would haggle over $5, asking if she could come down on price. Grace felt defeated, convinced that artistic talent simply wasn't valued in the real world. One Saturday, while packing up her unsold paintings after another disappointing day, Grace noticed an art gallery across the street. Curiosity drove her to peer through the window. What she saw inside made her heart sink and her mind race simultaneously. There, displayed under professional lighting with elegant frames, were paintings that looked remarkably similar to her work. But these paintings had price tags of $5,000, $8,000, even $15,000. Grace couldn't understand it. Her technical skill was equal to, if not superior to, what she saw in that gallery. Her creativity was just as vibrant. Her passion was just as genuine. So why were her paintings selling for $20 while similar works commanded thousands the next week? Instead of setting up her usual flea market booth, Grace did something different. She invested her last $400, money she desperately needed for rent, in professional framing for just 3 of her paintings. She researched the gallery owner and discovered he appreciated artists with unique stories and distinctive perspectives. Grace repositioned herself completely. Instead of being Grace, the struggling artist selling cheap paintings, she became Grace Martinez, the emerging contemporary artist exploring themes of urban resilience through vibrant expressionism. She created a compelling narrative around her work, explaining how each piece reflected her journey from poverty to possibility. She scheduled a meeting with the gallery owner, not as someone begging for a chance, but as an artist offering value to his collection. She presented her work professionally, spoke confidently about her artistic vision, and positioned her paintings as investments rather than decorations. 3 months later, Grace sold her first gallery piece for $8,000. The same painting technique, the same artistic ability, the same creative vision, but presented with proper positioning, professional presentation, and confident pricing. Within a year, Grace was commanding 5-figure commissions and had moved from her studio apartment to a beautiful loft that doubled as her workspace. The transformation was not in Grace's talent. That had always been there. The transformation was in how she presented her talent to the world. She stopped selling paintings and started selling artistic experiences. She stopped being a vendor and became a valuable artist. She stopped competing on price and started competing on perception. This is value activation, the art of presenting your worth in a way that makes others recognize it, respect it, and reward it appropriately. It's not about changing who you are. It's about changing how you present who you are. You see, the world does not pay you for your potential. The world pays you for your presentation of that potential. People do not compensate you for what you can do. They compensate you for how effectively you communicate what you can do. Value activation requires 3 elements: proper positioning, professional presentation, and confident pricing. You must position yourself correctly in the marketplace, present your abilities professionally, and price your services confidently. You must look for the eyes. Stop underselling yourself. Stop apologizing for your rates. Stop competing with people who undervalue themselves. Start presenting your value clearly, confidently, and consistently. The world is waiting to reward you appropriately. But first, you must show them what appropriate looks like. Your value is not negotiable. Your worth is not debatable. Your significance is not optional. You are a masterpiece that deserves to be displayed in the gallery of life, not hidden in the basement of mediocrity. The time for activation is now.